need that background
Hmm.
so they can, understand how things began and why things are the way they are today. So we're going to continue on that line, sir.
Okay,
So
cool,
what I want to
cool.
say, violent events severed us from our ancestors, DJ Roy, and
Hmm.
our ancestral history. So we're going to continue with that foundation, genocides of our ancestors from Kush to Kemet, followed by genocides and mental trauma.
Hmm.
That's what a lot of you are telling me from slavery and colonialism and all the social issues we face today cause even further mental and spiritual pain, mental and spiritual anguish to all of us. And the lacking of the knowledge on our history finally cuts us off from, the monumental bloodline, lifeline of our ancestors. And I call those ancestors the old race, the old race, the old race. Ensuring mental and spiritual anguish distract us from the rich cultural heritage they have left us, and all these events started 2,500 years ago
Hmm.
in Kush and Kemet, and then slavery and colonialism just did it end for a lot of us. I want to say really quickly to a lot of African leaders are apologizing to those of us who were our ancestors and our foreparents were enslaved. There, a lot of them are apologizing. They traded us for knives and goods. That's what they did. And I hope those knives were sharp. You traded us. I hope those knives were sharp, but
Hmm.
this is actually very serious. And I want to say to the colonialists, I hope you start giving back some of that wealth to the people of Africa because they need it badly to help, all the issues that they have there with health. Please give back some of that money you took, you misappropriated. Give back some of it. So DJ Roy, a lot of these genocides and slavery, colonialism were approved by the man-made religions that a lot of us worship today. So I want to say to all of you, this is about mental and spiritual health. It's about mental and spiritual healing. That's why we're doing the history. You have new species to nourish your bodies. Now we're going to give you history and knowledge to nourish your spirit and nourish your mind, nourish your mental state. And a lot of you telling me it's working for you, so spread the word around and let's stop crucifying ourselves by using what we now know of our ancestral culture and history to reconnect with them and to nourish, literally nourish our spirit and our minds. Our souls need nourishment just like new species nourishes your body so your body can cure itself. So, really quick, DJ, with paleoanthropologists and anthropologists agree, like we said before, that Africa holds the earliest evidence of the existence of humans. You all should see the works again of Lewis and Mary Leakey. I'm always going to give you citations for you to do your own research so you could see independently of what we say at New Species that it's true. And as you will see, Africa also holds the cradle of the first god worship unknown to man. You can see this in the divine kingship, also at Kustal Taseti or Kerma that we talk about on Monday School, and we're going to talk about more in the future. And these people are the Kushites, the people who created ancient Egypt or created Kemet. So Africa also hold people the study of the cradle of the study of astronomy. So a lot of you didn't know that. And astronomy is intimately woven with God worship, just so you all know that. So inventions in mathematics and architecture, engineering, chemistry, all these prove that these cradles of first actually did happen in in the continent of Africa. So the first humans appeared in the Tugen Hills in Kenya about 7 million years ago. Just recapping again, and then Lucy, 3.2 million years ago in Ethiopia. And then we talk about, and by the way, speaking of Kenya, Tanzania, Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, it's so funny, people, that when you think about it, the land of Ethiopia, think of the Cushites or the Nubians or the Tassadians, who were the people renamed in the Bible as Ethiopians. So the Ethiopia or Ethiopians you all see in the Bible, these are the Nubians, these are the Tassadians, these are the Cushites, the people who got renamed, in the Bible and by the Greeks. And then, getting back to Homo habilis 1.9 million years ago, and Homo erectus about 1.2 million years ago. And then, scientists say the early modern humans, about 500,000 to 200,000 years ago, that's when we became the so-called modern humans. I wonder if Homo habilis and Homo erectus had more morality than we do today, considering, all the wars and hate that we spread around the world. I wonder what they were like. They probably were a little better than we are. Well, we'll never know that. But always remember, the one strip of land from Kenya, Tanzania to Ethiopia and Kemet, this one piece of land is not separated by seas or oceans or water. Just one strip of land from Kenya, Tanzania to Ethiopia and Kemet. One piece of land. One piece of land. And part of that piece of land was renamed Egypt. Another part was renamed Ethiopia. But it's one piece of land. All the tribal kingdoms that lived there that got renamed. And this one piece of land is also called the Nile Valley. Yes, it's from Tanzania's Great Lake, Lake Nalabale, to Ethiopia and Kemet. One piece of land, one river, one Nile Valley. So DJ Roy, Adam's calendar is evidence of ancestral civilization over 75,000 years ago in Southern Africa, people, not Northern Africa, in Southern Africa. So let's get into it now. Why Southern Africa is so important. And DJ Roy, we never talked about it much, but people, this is why Southern Africa is so important. So African spirituality actually shaped astronomy in Africa, evidenced by our ancestors' endless observations and study of the stars in their orbital horizons, leading them, the Africans to map the zodiac. You heard about the zodiac, people. The Africans mapped the zodiac accurately 15 to 30,000 years ago. And this is not in the history books. So the megalith and monolith called Adam's calendar or Adam's clock holds over 70,000 years of knowledge in Umpong, Malanga. I'm sure that I've assassinated the pronunciation of that name, but it's a place in Southern Africa where Adam's calendar is located. So these megalith, people, are stones aligned to the cardinal points of the northern, southern, eastern, and western horizons, and are also aligned with the equinoxes and the solstices, speaking of the zodiac that we learned about as children in school and didn't know it was an African discovery, not mentioned at all in the history books. So more proof if you want it. You can do research, Google. In southern Egypt, Kenya, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Mali, Gambia, are thousands of these ancient calendars or clocks or observatories. So you can do the research and you'll see that Adam's calendar or Adam's clock is not unique. It's just that it's older than everybody else. Now Now, people, Adam's calendar is the world's first calendar or clock tracking the movement of the sun. So make sure you're recording all this. It tracks the days, the weeks, the months, the years by minute, by the hour, and it's the first known to mankind. Now, DJ Roy, this is the crux of the matter. What has this great 70-year-old civilization given to the world? We're going to talk about one part now, and then when we come back, DJ Roy, later in the hour, we'll talk about the rest of it. Just one little bit I want to give to people why Southern Africa is so important. So Adam's calendar, people, has given us God worship in the Holy Land. Critical knowledge passed from the Southern Africans at Adam's calendar to the East, West, North Africans who wrote extensively in the sacred texts, the Medineta texts, the pyramid text, the coffin text, the Book of the Dead, transcribed from all the writings and languages and other oral traditions that I now have. So these sacred texts, DJ Roy, they were renamed the hieroglyphics, but the Medineta language, these texts, DJ Roy, they show that all Africans consider the land of Punt or Tanataru as the Holy Land, the land of God, as written in these texts. Now, people, this is critically important because, yes, you have never heard this before because it's not mentioned in the history books, but the land of God, the Holy Land, is called Tanataru or Tanetjar in the sacred texts of the Cushites and Kemites as well as the Kermans, the Nubians, the Cushites, the Thessalians. It's mentioned in their ancient texts. So God worship, people, and sacred divine spirituality with heaven up there in the Orion constellation, or even beyond the Orion, along the African eastern to southern horizon, you will find, people, the Sirius star, the brightest star in the night sky. Yes, right along the eastern southern horizon of the southern hemisphere. To the African southern sky, you will find the Orion constellation. And in the African southern to western horizons, DJ Roy, you will find the Milky Way galaxies. Why are these important, people? The combination of these stars and galaxies and the magnetic field pulsing from the core of the Earth in the southern hemisphere is heat, very hot, requiring dark, black, brown skins for survival. Thousands of years ago in Africa, it was probably a lot hotter. So without melanin in the skin to alleviate the ultraviolet rays from these stars and galaxies, what do you think would have happened, people? Survival would have been very limited. Probably survival, DJ Roy, would be impossible. So more studies are needed, people, to highlight this. But DJ Roy, when we come back, sir, we're going to talk more about this. We're going to talk more about how this one place in Southern Africa has given us so much knowledge that's not in the history books. I say it's a darn shame. I'm saying that.
Well, I don't think you're the only one that's simple. You're saying it now. It's just that we're not hearing it enough. That's why we've got Monday School, so we can have these conversations and, of course, reflect and share information. People, please download that New Species app. Stay connected to the team at New Species by downloading the app. Get on your starter packages and get on them fast. 888-548-3150. 888-548-3150. So, my friend, we will be back in a few.
I look forward to it, sir. Thank you.
Yes, of course, we need a part two, Austin. Bird can't fly on one wing.
That's what they say where I'm from as well.
Bird can't fly on one wing. So, Austin will be back in a few. People, again, please download the New Species app.
Civilization did not begin 3,000 years ago, my friends. Civilization began about 75,000 years ago by the early Alkebulians, or the early Africans, or the very early Kushites in southern Africa. Civilization did not begin with the ancient Greeks. Civilization did not begin with the ancient Romans. Civilization began with the early Kushites, who migrated from southern Africa via the Khoisans, or the Khoikhoi, and the Bantu to northern Africa. Now, the Blombos Caves in southern Alkebulan have some of the most extraordinary pieces of arts that were made over 70,000 years ago. But we're not here to talk about the Blombos Caves. We're here to talk about Adam's calendar in southern Alkebulan. The Adam's calendar was built at least 75,000 years ago. Some believe that it was built as early as 130,000 years ago. But let's stick with 75,000 years ago. The early Kushites who built the Adam's calendar, they used granite, dolomite, and hornfels. These are special stones that have certain electromagnetic components. And this is very critical to what the early Kushites were trying to accomplish, or had accomplished. Those stones were protruding from the ground, but those stones, because they're electromagnetic in nature, because of their components, because of their chemistry, those stones were connected with the magnetic energy, or the magnetic force, or the electromagnetic force from the core of the earth, as well as the other minerals that carry that force from the core of the earth to the surface of the earth, where these dolomites and granite, they also created a force field that was also connecting with the Orion constellation and likely other galaxies. We don't know the full extent of what the early Kushites were doing over 75,000 years ago, but we know this. Those megaliths, they are perfectly aligned with the brightest stars in the Orion constellation. And those megaliths, they have electromagnetic forces connecting into the earth and connecting above the earth with other electromagnetic forces, which could be the photon physics, or it could be other electromagnetic forces related to gravity. Now, we're going to talk about that because it is very important to understand what these early human ancestors accomplished and how this knowledge migrated to the Kushites in northern Africa, as well as to the Egyptians, who were Kushites. Let's talk about Adam's calendar. And just think for a moment about the degree of knowledge that would be required to accomplish what I just said 75,000 years ago. Imagine the knowledge, exceptional inventions in spherical trigonometry, in geometry, and other mathematical forms that would be required 75,000 years ago, at least, to align these electromagnetic megaliths with the Orion constellation perfectly. Perfect alignment. Imagine. Now, this Adam's calendar can today be used as a real calendar to predict rainstorms, to tell the season of the year, to tell the time of the year by month, week, day, and even the precise time any given day. Yes, the Adam's calendar circle can do that today, as it had done over 75,000 years ago. Now, again, imagine the knowledge in particle physics, wave frequency physics, or electricity and magnetism, quantum physics, other multivariable calculus, other mathematical methods in physics, statistics. We don't know that the Kushites were calling this quantum physics or quantum mechanics or electromagnetic force 75,000 years ago. But we know that what they have accomplished. These modern names, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, wave frequencies, photon physics. We know that all these names that we use today in physics and chemistry could easily have been used 75,000 years ago. Now, we will talk about this a whole lot more, Adam's calendar, and the astronomical signs, or the signs in astronomy and astrology that they developed 75,000 years ago. We will talk about that because this also has everything to do with Kushite spirituality. Let's go further north up to Naphtali. While Adam's calendar was built over 75,000 years ago and is perfectly aligned with the Orion constellation that is over 1,300 light years away from here, from Earth, over 1,300 light years away from here. Now, in each light year is 6 trillion years, 6 trillion years in one light year. The Orion constellation is about 1,300 light years away from Earth. Now, let's go up to Naphtali. Naphtali is also aligned, at least when it was built, with the brightest stars in the Orion constellation. Naphtali has megalith as well, which need to be examined more by scientists. But Naphtali megalith are aligned, or at least when it was built, with the brightest stars in the Orion constellation, just as Adam's circle, or Adam's calendar. Now, let's move further north. Egypt. The 3 pyramids at Giza are also aligned with the Orion constellation, or at least the brightest stars in the Orion constellation. Now, the 3 pyramids at Giza, Naphtali, Adam's circle, all have the same astronomical concepts in common. They're aligned with the brightest stars in the Orion constellation. The Great Sphinx, which is aligned with the 3 pyramids at Giza, are also aligned toward the constellation of the Orion belt. Why are all of these monuments invented by the Alkebulians or Africans? Why are they so important? They're important, friends, because it shows that civilization not only began over 75,000 years ago, but it shows that the knowledge of the Cushites or the Cushite Egyptians and the knowledge that they brought to Kerma, the knowledge that they brought to Napata was the knowledge they used to construct the holy sacred city of Napata. The holy sacred city of Napata that was destroyed. It was completely razed, completely destroyed. Now, what we don't know is the knowledge that was destroyed there. The knowledge in astronomy, astrology, in earth science, knowledge of physics, knowledge of chemistry, knowledge of architecture, and probably most importantly, knowledge of how the Cushites were able to survive global climate change that is now affecting us today. Imagine if we had that knowledge today. Imagine if that knowledge was not destroyed. So this is something for all of us to think about, all humans to think about, and think about in the sense that when we don't all stand together, we stand disintegrated. But let's go back to the Cushites. We're going to talk about Cushite spirituality. We're going to talk about what happened at Adam's calendar, what happens at Naphtali, what happens at the three pyramids at Giza, and then we're going to talk about the holy sacred city of Napata and how we are a weaker people today. All humans are weaker because of its destruction and what was destroyed there. All that knowledge and information that could probably help us today to survive global climate change that we still can't seem to figure out.
Into history and to protect the mind and spirit from the oppression that's built into what has been.
Stan, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So we continue from where you left off.
So, DJ Roy, our ancestors called in their language, written over 6,000 years ago, the Medinata language, they called the land of Punt, or the land of Tanataru, and in that language, it means holy land. It means the land of God. And that land, DJ, is the land stretching deep into southern Africa. I mentioned Kenya, I mentioned Tanzania, I mentioned, all those lands around the Great Lake, Lake Nalabale, renamed Lake Victoria. Those of you who are researching it, it's been renamed to Lake Victoria, Lake Nalabale. So they didn't call this strip of land the Holy Land recently, DJ Roy. It was called that thousands of years before the Bible was written. Thousands of years before it was written, people. At least 3,000 years before it was written. This one strip of land was called the Holy Land. So I know a lot of you are a little nervous, especially those of you who love the Bible like I do. But facts are facts, DJ Roy. And And now that you all know from what I said previously, I'm going to recap it for you. Why they called this one strip of land the Holy Land, the land of God. They call it the land of God because of the many thousands of years, the tens of thousands of years of all the work and the worship they did there, the work in astronomy, the work in studying the earth, the work in studying the heavens up there in heaven. That's where it was first written, people, in the Mennonite language, up there in heaven. I personally don't know where up there in heaven is, DJ Roy, but I know that our ancestors have written extensively about the Orion constellation. They have even named the Sirius star of one of the great mothers in our ancestry called Isis. Those of you who have heard of Iset or Isis, she was the wife of Osiris. And our ancestors named the Sirius star after her, Isis. And the Sirius star is located in the eastern to southern sky, right above, the African horizon in the southern hemisphere. Same thing with the Orion constellation. You've heard about the Kemites and the Cushites and the Dogons and all those other people, other tribes in Africa, their fascination with the Orion constellation. The pyramids are aligned with the Orion constellation. A lot of monuments in Africa are aligned with the Orion constellation, with stars in the Orion constellation. And now you're hearing that the Sirius star and stars in Orion and the Milky Way galaxy is giving all the heat to Africa, or to the southern hemisphere. That's where all the heat come from, people. Just to break it down a little bit more for all of you. And then something you may not know, in the core of the earth is a massive magnetic field. And that massive field, that's what formed the south and the north poles. So the north pole is colder and the south pole is hotter. So in the southern hemisphere, where the south pole is, it's a magnetic field emanating from the core of the earth that collides, DJ Roy. That magnetic field collides with the Milky Way galaxy, the ultraviolet rays from the Milky Way galaxies, from the Sirius star, from Orion constellation stars. So you see, people, it's heat from the below and heat from above. So these first God worshippers that we see in writing, I'm not saying there weren't others before that, that's part of the reason why they believe and they call southern Africa the land of God, the Holy Land. This is very important, people. It's history, not in the history books. And maybe, DJ Roy, because I did a little chemistry and a little physics, and maybe because, I have patents in physics and I have other inventions why I understand this so easily. It may not be easily understood by other people, but what I'm telling you is the truth. It is the truth. So think about it. The Holy Land, as stated by our ancestors in Africa, the Holy Land, and that one strip of land where humanity, according to Mary and Louis Leakey, two anthropologists who no one questioned, they state that the first humans discovered on planet Earth were in the Turgan Hills of Kenya, then Lucy in Ethiopia, and then you heard of Habilis and Erectus. They're all along that one strip of land, DJ Roy. All of them along that one strip of land. That's where they were located. That's where they lived. And then, DJ Roy, that one piece of land also is the Nile Valley, from Lake Nalubale to Kemet, or Egypt. The Bible and the Greeks now call Kemet Egypt. They renamed it. But that one strip of land is one strip of African land. It's one strip of Africa. And one part, DJ Roy, is not more important than the other. I would say that those of us who are spiritual and those of us who believe in God would say, DJ Roy, that the land of God is pretty important. The Holy Land is pretty important. And the Holy Land, yes, people, it's not Cush, it's not Ethiopia, and it's not Kemet. That's not what they call the Holy Land. They say they're from the Holy Land, which is further down in southern Africa. And here we learned about Adam's calendar and all the extraordinary knowledge and information now being collected at Adam's calendar. DJ Roy, this is pretty significant. It's very significant, people. So speaking of mental health, I hope that helps your spirit and your souls today. And then the other piece of this is the physical. I think you all now understand why people who live in the southern hemisphere and southern Africa have to have dark, black, brown skins like I do. Those of you who are looking at me now, I have all three skin colors. I'm black, I'm dark, and I'm brown. So I guess I could live there, DJ Roy. And hopefully the ultraviolet rays from the Milky Way galaxies, from the Sirius star, from the Orion constellation, the magnetic field from the Earth, hopefully it won't give me cancer or skin cancer from the ultraviolet rays. But that's why this is important, people. You just think about all these little pieces I just gave you. The stars, the core of the Earth, the magnetic field in the southern hemisphere, what our ancestors say they're from, the Holy Land, the first humans discovered on planet Earth, where they were located along that one strip. So DJ Roy, that one strip embodies everything to humanity today. It should. Everything. God, spirituality, the first human existence, the magnetic field, and the impact on the Earth, even today, impact on the weather system, even today. And DJ Roy, make no mistake about it, and I know you won't, sir. The Sirius star, the Orion constellation, the Milky Way galaxy, and the magnetic field will have a very deadly impact on global warming. It will, people. It must. The Earth not just going to change to suit us. We have to change to suit the Earth. Yes, DJ Roy, that part of the world, I believe, will become, when global warming hits really hard, it will become probably the most important part of planet Earth, because of the galaxies and the stars and the magnetic core of the Earth in the southern hemisphere will have a devastating impact on global warming. All right, sir. I think I've said enough.
I'm not sure if you can ever say enough. I told you we need an extended version of Monday School. And also, for those that are listening, if you download the app and you download that New Species app, you'll get more history and get more information about the formulas and how well they work with people like you. Yes, you. That means, notice I said like you, not everybody in the sound of my voice. But if you want more history, please download that New Species app today. You can also go to the website, which is nuspecies.com. starterpackage.com. Get on those starter packages, affordable and available, when you call 888-548-3150, 888-548-3150. You got the number, so you know what to do, and you know who to call. And Austin, I know maybe you can give us a little bit more later on this evening.
I look forward to that, sir. And people, please go online and share these videos and like them and share them so we can educate the world. Please, please do that. Share them. And yes, DJ Roy, the pyramids, Adam's calendar, NAPTA player, the study of astronomy, the cradle of astronomy, were not by aliens. They were by some very smart humans, some incredibly smart humans. There were no aliens in Africa, people. Get it out of your brain.
All right, once again, people, join us later on this afternoon. Please download that New Species app, stay connected, and call. Get on the starter packages, 888-548-3150.